Hello and welcome to the Hey Tara, it's Corey.
Hi there.
What are you doing on?
I'm listening in. Not saying I can stay the whole time, but I'm listening in.
Appreciate that, but you do not have to be. You're in front of about 40 people, as I'm saying. So, but
I
thanks for
understand.
please log off.
Hello and welcome to the East Lampeter Township Public Meeting. All participants are now in. Hello and welcome to the East Lampeter Township Public Meeting. All participants are now informed that this meeting is being. Hello and welcome to the East Lampeter Township Public Meeting. All participants are now informed that this meeting is being recorded. This meeting is also being offered virtually utilizing Zoom, which is a cloud-based platform for remote video and audio conferencing. The Zoom application is free to the public. The general. Hello and welcome to the East Lampeter Township Public Meeting. All participants are now informed that this meeting is being recorded. This meeting is also being offered virtually utilizing Zoom, which is a cloud-based platform for remote video and audio conferencing. The Zoom application is free to the public. The general public is therefore able to join the meeting by connection through the internet or by calling in by phone. The public is also able to observe the meeting on the Township's YouTube channel. Please continue to check the Township website calendar for any updates related to these public meetings. Agendas for these public meetings will also be available on the Township's website. Please be reminded that this meeting is being video and audio recorded.
That's right. I can make something. Yes. Okay. Okay. We're gonna get started. Usually we have a recording, so I'm gonna make up the recording. That's my best summary. So the meeting's being audio and video recorded. You can access it on our YouTube channel, and I think that's it. What other main points do I have to add? Much. We're all here. All the members are here. They can all hear me. All good. Okay. I'm going to call the meeting to order of the East Lampeter Township Board of Supervisors, Monday, May 20th, 2024. I am the chair, and all members of the board are here. Please join me in the pledge of the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag, United States, to the republic, nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Number 3 on the agenda, we have public comment for non-agenda items only. Is anyone here for public comment for non-agenda items? No online as well. Okay. We'll move on to the consent agenda. 4A, approval of the May 20th, 2024 Board of Supervisors meeting agenda. We have 4B, approval of the minutes of the Monday, May 6th, 2024 regular meeting. We have 4C, time extension for township review to commence work on the required public improvements for Treehouse Foods, Plan 2326, 2060 Old Philadelphia Pike. They've requested a time extension to September 9th, 2024 to commence the work. Deadline for completion of construction is not until June of 2025, and they have not requested a time extension issue date. And then we have 4D, approval to pay invoices from all funds. It's a total $277,940.05. There are two notable amounts: $62,512.50 to Her Signal for the Green Light Go traffic signal project on the Old Philadelphia Pike. We have $17,166.50 to 10-8 Emergency for police vehicle upfitting. We have this consent agenda, and I believe you have a change.
One minor tweak to the minutes from the last meeting. Under item 2, the housing pieces. It states the minutes. Motion was made by Ethan Debbie to have township staff look at the recommendations presented and discuss the presented list of priorities. I reviewed what I said there, and so my motion was to accept the recommendations presented and discussed and have township staff present a list of priorities. Minor tweak.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as revised, items A through D.
Thank you. Motion made by Ted, seconded by Mike. Any other board or public comment for the consent agenda? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Failed to mention, we do have agendas and minutes at the back of the room, and if you want to sign in, you'll be in the record forever attending the May 20th meeting of the Board of Supervisors. Chief, Police Department recognition. Chief Zerby.
Thank you, gentlemen, for another opportunity to recognize some of our officers. At this time, I'd like to call Sergeant Clunin, Detective Waltman, Officer Sanger, and Officer Morrow to the front. I imagine that some of these officers probably tell you that what we're going to talk about really wasn't any big deal. I mean, there's just stuff behind stuff all the time, and that's just because they're humble. But the reality is the arrest that these four, as well as Detective Chris Jones, who can't be with us tonight because he's on another detail that is going as we speak, made a significant arrest in February, and that arrest solved some major crimes for us. But I want to read this to you. On Sunday, February 18th, and I'm speaking to you four and Chris Jones, you were key components in the pursuit, apprehension, interview, and arrest of burglary suspect Tyrese Hatfield, who over the course of 8 months committed 18 burglaries in East Lampeter and Upper Laycock Townships. The arrest of this individual cleared over 40 active burglary investigations involving the areas of New Holland, East Earl, West Earl, Strasburg, and several jurisdictions covered by the Pennsylvania Police Department. The burglaries comprised more than $27,000 in cash and property that was stolen, as well as over $8,000 in damages while committing these burglaries. As a result of your proactive police work and excellent investigative skills, the suspect confessed to all burglaries. You're commended for your actions in serving the communities of East Lampeter and Upper Laycock Township. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're good. Yeah.
And I'd also like the fact that Jones, again, can't be with us tonight. He was voted Investigator of the Year, Lancaster County, 2023, an award which he received yesterday afternoon at the West Willow United Methodist Church during their annual memorial service. So I wanted to mention that as well. And also, Officer Mike Redden, who also is with us tonight. Mike completed 25 years of service on the 17th this month, and he will, of course, receive the typical 25th anniversary box that we hand out. I wanted to mention him as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
And that's for 2023. He was the Detective of the Year.
Investigator of the Year 2023.
Yeah.
Yeah, before you guys leave, I just want to say thank you. Thank you, Chief, for bringing that forward. Detective Jones, of course, can't be here, and Officer Redden as well. But I think many of you know I serve on the state commission at MOPEC. And you know, being a part of East Lampeder and wearing this little logo means so much. And you guys are known throughout the Commonwealth. Your accreditation, best practices of this organization. Should be super proud being a part of East Lampeder. I am. Thank you. And thanks to your families. Any family here of officers? Maybe a little introduction of the family members. Well, hi, Mom and Dad. Thank you for being here. And again, thanks for allowing your loved ones to serve every day. The job is not getting easier. And we so appreciate the great work you guys do. Thank you. Any other comments?
Echo the same. Yeah.
Here.
Great job.
Thank you. Have a great rest of the day. Okay, next on the agenda, we have 6 appeal hearing regarding suspension. Chief didn't leave, good. Regarding suspension from non-preference tow list, absolute towing. I'm actually gonna open the hearing first. Okay. I'm gonna open the hearing for this issue, and then I'll have Hutch give a brief description of what we're talking about.
Sure. As board members will recall, this was on your agenda at your last meeting, May the 6th, and you decided at that time to continue the hearing. It was open and continued till tonight. We gave additional notice to Absolute Towing that you'd be here again for the continued hearing. The hearing was asked for by Absolute Towing prior to their owner passing. And so that additional notice was given to them. The appeal was because Chief Zerby had given them notice that they were going to be suspended from the no preference tow list that the police department uses for necessary towings. And he was appealing that because he didn't want to be suspended from that list. So that's the issue that would be before you tonight.
Is anyone here from Absolute Towing? Okay. We will continue with the hearing, Chief, if you just want to come up to the front. In most cases, or typical case, we would have Absolute Towing give the reason why they're appealing. In this case, since they're not here, we'll hear your testimony.
Gentlemen, in late March of this year, I became aware that the police department had responded to several calls involving employees of Absolute Towing. And I'd like to be clear that the owner, Mark Lapp, was not one of those individuals. Other individuals under his employment. And after doing some research into these calls and consulting with East Lampeder Township's attorney, I determined that 2 of the 5 incidents that I was looking into were significant enough to violate East Lampeder Township's tow policy, specifically 7-C, numbers 8 and 10. So on April the 3rd, I sent a certified letter to Absolute Towing's owner, Mr. Mark Lapp, advising of my conclusions and my intent to suspend Absolute Towing's operation from the East Lampeder Township non-preference tow list for 90 days. I further advised Mr. Lapp of his right to appeal. And on April 19th, Mr. Lapp did drop off an appeal letter to the township. So that's where we got to this point.
Gentlemen, you have documents that state the reasons for the suspension as well as a letter from Mr. Mark Lapp. Of course, he stated his deceased at this point, identifying in great detail the two situations and his response to those two situations. Are there any questions for Chief Zerby?
Chief, do you have any idea of how many towing actions that might involve in 90 days for a particular member on that list?
We'll be taking a guess. It would be for sure, at least three rotations through, at least three long week rotations through, and possibly a fourth. I would venture to say somewhere between 5 and 10 for each week.
Any other questions for Chief Zerby? Okay.
Make a motion to deny the appeal by absolute town.
Close the hearing first, or
That would be appropriate.
Motion to close the hearing.
motion to close the hearing. Is there a second? Okay. Any other comment from the board about that motion for the hearing? I do not need to take public because it's not I mean, I can. Okay.
Who made the second? I'm sorry.
Second was Ted. Motion was made to close. Second was Ted. Any public comment to close the hearing? Assuming no. Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the hearing is closed. And
Make a motion to deny the appeal by absolute town.
motion is made by Ethan, second by Ted. Any board comment or public comment about the motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. Have a great rest of the night. Okay, we're on to Lafayette Fire Company ladder truck presentation regarding proposed fire apparatus purchase. Mr. Keynes, Mr. Byron.
Evening, gentlemen. First off, just kind of wanted to say thank you for your continued support over the years, both financially, operationally, and maintaining the volunteer fire companies within the township. Because frankly, without you guys, we probably wouldn't be here.
Without you guys, we're going to be here. So thank you.
We're gonna kind of give a little bit of background. And then Deputy Chief Keynes is going to talk about the apparatus purchase here and kind of so about. So we formed a committee here in mid 2022 to basically determine where do we go from here. Our truck is a 2007 and it's because of 20-year replacement cycle. That committee consisted of Deputy Chief Keynes, Chief, Assistant Chief Dylan Lee, Firefighter Special Chief New Schwan. Now tonight. Combined gentlemen have about 115 years plus experience in the fire service. So when I put this committee together, I wanted to make sure we had a lot of experience to draw from. And several of those individuals have experience outside of East Lamphere and other departments who have run other areas. So the intent was to put a good committee together who can design a piece that'll work for the next 20 to 25 years. So initially we set out to determine, do we want to refurbish the current unit? And if so, or go with it, or do we want to replace it? So in looking into the refurbishments, we basically got a quote back from Pierce, ballpark, about 1.2 to 1.5 million to refurbish. And part of the expense in that has to do with the fact that we would propose that they would have stripped all the electronics out of it for some reasons that Deputy Chief Keynes will explain later with some current issues we're having with our current. So we met with a couple different committees. They looked at all the manufacturers, narrowed it down to Seagraves, E1, and Pierce, and kind of got some preliminary numbers from them, as well as tried to make a determination of what piece of apparatus, whether we have a platform or a ladder, to serve the community for the next number of years. Got some input from our membership as well. If they want to see with this, because obviously they're the ones running it every day, so we wanted to make sure they're, majority are on board where we go with that. And based on that, we decided to move forward with a ladder. So that the current platform we had, everything is a general platform that we didn't have in the original ladder. And ultimately, at that point, narrowed it down to E1 and Pierce, mainly because Seagraves was just way too far out of line price-wise. They were way higher than anybody else we had looked at. So we began to work with those two to come up with a spec. But just to back up track here a little bit and give you a little history on the aerial apparatus, in 1986, we had our Mac 75-foot ladder, which we had purchased for about $240,000 back at that point in time. Retired that in 97. Moved on to our current ladder truck, which is a platform, 95-foot mid-mount Pierce Quantum. And mainly the reason we switched back at that point in time, and I had the privilege of being on that committee, was because of the aerial apparatus surrounding us was a much different makeup than it currently is. Back then, Eden, obviously part of Manheim Township now, had gone from a platform to a ladder. And so at that point, our closest platforms were pretty much in Lancaster Township on the west side of town, Willow Street on Workstown, brother, east. So we wanted to have multiple capabilities given the diversity of the township. Next slide, please. So I'll turn it over to Deputy Chief Keats here to kind of just give a little background on the current, kind of how the committee arrived, at the decision they did, and then kind of the financial stuff.
All right, thanks. Nice thing is this time I won't have that little clicker to the bane of existence. Made it about halfway through it. So give a quick cap here for our current ladder truck. But probably most of you guys have seen going up and down the street from time. Right, it says 2007 unit. It has Detroit diesel 525 engine, which is fairly solid. 2,000 pounds on it. Sometimes it doesn't like to get out. Right, 95-foot aerial. Please be reminded that that is more for the reach than it is the vertical component. And at the time, the pinnacle of technology is, hey, the H-style outrigger. We still have those. I'll put a base on that a little bit later. But the spread for that vehicle is 18 foot wide, okay, which is substantial. 20 kW generator, a 2,000 ppm water tank? Nope. So we decided, as comparison to our other we had, is this one is going to be a dry truck. What is our function? What do we want to do? Do you want to be, hey, a split crew, half of it engine work, half truck work? Or really, do you want to dedicate 100% to the unit you are bringing to that seat? Engines, dime a dozen. Plenty we have in our station, plenty we have in mutual aid. There's no problem giving a supply to this unit. So that's the route we went. When we talk about ladders, it is much easier to get a ground ladder for a quick rescue than it is to sit there, set up the truck, and get the main to the roof or a window or wherever it is you need to go. So we have 210 feet currently at our disposal that we can deploy off this ladder truck. Unit weight, being all steel or stainless steel body, is 82,000 pounds. So whether the grass is dry or whether it's wet, like something like we've had over the last couple of days where the rain doesn't seem to end, if we take this off-road, we're going to sink it. And I really don't want to recreate the Titanic, but we will do it if we have to take it off-road for a life safety event, but we'll have to come up with alternate measures to get it back out. Aerial weight capacities. If we're not flowing water, we can put 1,000 pounds in the bucket. Well, we can only typically fit about 3 firefighters plus gear, 200 pounds average on there plus equipment. You're going to get probably close to that, or at least better weight towards that. If we're flowing water, instantly cut in half to 500. So some of the concerns that we've been having going on with this thing within the past 5 to 10 years, okay, our maintenance costs are really starting to skyrocket. We're looking at about $25,000 a year in rising, just for very little things that keep going along with it. The generator replacement, 20 to 30,000. Lately, within the last 6 months, the generator seems to be in this little, I call it oscillation, where you'll see the lights kind of start going in and out. It gets more and more frequent, and then the generator just kick off. All right, we're trying to do some kind of life-saving measure. Electric tools, I cannot to lose that power, right? Neither can the person work on. Intermittent ladder PTO issues, okay? Well, you've heard the times like when seconds count, it helps minutes away, okay? Well, this is kind of the same thing here. There's electric modules built into the computer system, this unit. And there's 8 or 10 different ones in there. Each one controls this function of the truck to be with. We've had it already. Go to the scene, and Hey, my red light's on. Okay, not too big a deal. We can shut the vehicle off, restart. But sometimes we get there, we'll go to put the aerial, nothing happens. Well, if you have somebody in a third story window screaming for help, I'm going to shut the truck down. Who wants to deal with it? That takes time that we do not have for somebody that's in an emergency. So when we replace those, that is an astronomical. So those electric modules, 3,000, 15,000 a year, which is costing us year after year. So this is starting to catch up over time. Fortunately, those modules are proprietary technology to Pierce, so we can't just go out in the open market and find a replacement at a cheaper cost. Next slide, please. So when we start looking, platform versus ladder, it's probably the biggest question that we've had. Other people in town, people with the company, why is it we're switching up? Well, there's a lot of advantage to the ladder that a platform just doesn't. Okay, better maneuverability. Okay, a lot of times these vehicles are a little bit shorter, a little bit less weight, so we don't have to worry about as much getting into tighter spots. Less street space for setup and scrubbing. Scrubbing means access to the side of the building. We were to stretch the ladder out. With the mid-mount tower, the best possible workroom is directly off the sides. Second best being off the back, worst would be the front. If we had a rear mount stick, you can work off of either side, the back, and straight off, not limited as much with this vehicle. Better positioning. We can pull straight in, go to work, or you can back right in. Okay, so while we work with our other township companies about getting prime positioning for the ladder truck, this will actually just accelerate that so we can get better position right off the bat. It's a quicker setup. We'll go into some of the advantages of the two later on in a couple slides here. But with the one that we're looking at, we're going to propose is I can push 2 buttons on either side and all 4 operators come down once and we're done. Very quick setup. Driver training is pretty easy and a lot more compartment space going down the sides. We don't have to worry about the turntable getting in the way as much in the front. Increased ground ladders, more space for storage. Visibility when working off the ladder. Personally been involved in rescues where we needed to rig something up below to pull an individual who had fallen down into a basement. And trying to see what's going on below you, you need to make use of a spot. Can't see. Now I can break straight through the ladder. Working off either side, I can see exactly what's going on. Get pretty much 360 degrees around. So from a safety aspect, that's huge, knowing what's going on. Situation. Overall, the unit is going to be a little bit less weight, and we'll touch on it briefly too. So next slide. So we pretty much looked at Pierce, we looked at E1. Pierce capabilities, lead times currently sitting right about 48 plus, give or take. We had a 105-foot steel area with 14-foot H style. So very similar to what we have now, but not quite as these improved. 10 kW generator. Why did that number drop by half? Well, with the more prevalent nature of LEDs, it's much demand on the electronics we have on the vehicle, so we were able to bring that down. Okay, 1,500 GPM water weight, 5-inch inlet, aerial weight capacity is 750 pounds dry, 500 wet, and the unit weight is approximately 77 pounds, give or take, without it. So it's a little bit less than we currently have. The overall is still built steel. When we look at the ground ladder, compared to the 210 that we currently, we're able to put 338 feet total ground. So we can put some more on here. Looking at the Pierce truck for the part here, you can see the compartments we have running down the side. The very first compartment right behind the cab is extremely wide. It's also what is considered a transverse. So that has the complete opening, one side of the vehicle to the next. You can put a sliding tray, you can put a lot of different things in there. However, the question I have is there going to be void space in there? I can put some extinguishers down the side, I can put a stokes basket, I can put some miscellaneous loose equipment, but how close am I going to put it in there? Am I going to be able to access it, or am I going to have dead space and now it's wasted? The third compartment back also is a transverse one on the upper top. So if you scroll down just a little bit to the black and white drawings here, you can see there are 2 flip-up compartments on the top left there of the actual vehicle. Those top compartments will open up, and that is what's transverse to the other side. Now, that's great as far as storage space. If you have something that's probably short, maybe long, you can go in there. But for some of our vertically challenged folks that we have, it's going to be a little difficult to reach up there. So in my opinion, this is not really the best benefit of space that we have on the vehicle for that, without potentially introducing another fall hazard, somebody trying to access something from the top. So continuing along here, Let's talk about E1. It's currently 36 to 48 months, okay? 100-foot CR 100 aerial, which is their heavyweight aerial, and we have 13-foot low profile, which are called box style outriggers. And you can see they pretty much just jut out down from the bottom. We have a better comparison coming here shortly. Once again, a 10 kW generator, a 1,500 gallon per minute waterway with a 5-inch inlet. That's the same for both of them in there. Aerial capacity 800 dry and 550 wet. And let me tell you, when it says 800 pounds, we put 8 or 9 of us on the very tip of this thing. And then I'm 200 some pounds. And we had some of my partners more than that. And that ladder moved this far. I said, okay, now you don't want to overload the aerial, but just to show you the strength that's built into this, like, wow, I'm impressed. Unit weight between 65 and 70,000 due to its aluminum construction. The aerial is aluminum and a lot of the body is also aluminum. So compared to the other ground ladders that we had, we can get up to 266 total feet, which is extreme. So comparison to what we have now, 210 jumping up to 266, that's phenomenal. Okay. Continuing along to the little graphic here. I think this is sliding down, this is better. The body of this truck is very similar to the one that we have now. Respect that we have compartmentation of the entire length of both sides. Now, while yes, we do have side stack ladders for both the Pierce vehicle and the E1, the compartment space that we got through this one is much, much. And we'll be able to customize that much better. With this, it still has a transverse compartment. It's not as wide as the Pierce option, but I think that would be much more easier for us to manage because it's pretty much in comparison to what we have now, some of our other vehicles. So if you continue along, the transverse compartment kind of points out there, 2 sides of the truck. Unfortunately, I did not get a without supply. So you actually get in slide. There we go. So when we talk about setup space, and this is huge. If we go into areas in Lancaster Township, we go into Bentley Ridge, we go into some areas where the street may not be as big, especially in the residential setups at nighttime. Everybody's parked on the street. People have company over in the summertime. There's a lot of cars out there. Okay, when I have an 18-foot outrigger spread, that gets very difficult. We assisted Whitmer a couple months ago when we responded in. We had perfect setup in the front of the house, but unfortunately there was vehicles parked nearby. We could not get our outrigger out. We may have even made contact. That's kind of 14-foot helps, but when you drop down to that 13-foot, you can see how low profile they are in that actual vehicle in that far left picture. It only sticks out about this far. With this, since it's a different design, the E1 big design that they have as far as their structural integrity is not that they run frame rails like a typical vehicle. They have a torque box, which runs the entire length of the body. And those outriggers are integrated into that. That's where they derive their strengths. It's a little bit different of an engineering tactic that they do. With this, because everything is low to the ground and low profile, it allows for additional compartmentation and usable space for life-saving equipment. So we'll continue along. One other thing that the E1 had is they offer the ability to completely remote control this unit. We can set the outriggers. I can bring the aerial up, bring it to the roof, up, down, left, right, upside down, whatever you want to do, okay? With this, I could also control the monitor. So if we were ever approaching a chemical spill in a high-stakes environment, we didn't want to expose our firefighters to something nasty by sending them right up close to manipulate the controls of the ladder truck. We can operate this almost 1,000 feet away in safety. With this, as the driver is currently trying to set up the ladder truck, we have to go to the back. In the back of our current truck is also the ladder tunnel. So you have firemen trying to come in, you have the driver operator trying to go in there at the same space. And as we all know, basic physics, we cannot occupy the same space at the same time. So what we can do with the remote control is the driver now can stand at a clear vantage point out of the way towards the front of the vehicle, safely set it up. As guys are going to work right away, they can set up the aerial right to the roof. So if we have to, we can go right up and get the job done, whatever it is that is.
Is that like a harness unit? Is that what it looks? Is that like a harness that goes over here?
Yeah, it virtually is a crane room that they repurposed into this.
Yeah.
So I use them out at my work all the time. Learning this was extremely easy. Lives come about them great. So when we talk about prices and overall, E1 came in at $1.795 million. Okay, Pierce was right behind them at 1.78. Okay, now What these prices do not include is $100,000 with 2027 EPA limits, which are coming down. Unfortunately, between any manufacturer, no chance, no way to get this. It's pretty much going to be 100,000 either way, no matter who we go. With this, because they don't 100% know what it's going to cost, they told us to use the $100,000. So if it comes in at 70,000 or 60,000, we're going to get that remaining money. Okay. So we don't have to say like, this is a hard number. We'll get it. Some of the E1 advantages, the remote operation services right down the street in New Holland. The lead time was a little bit better. Ladders, bar none, they're 266 feet, I think it was that I had said. Compartmentation is better, less dead space. We can use pretty much every inch on this vehicle. It is 1 foot in length less, so that helps with turning, navigation, with less tail swing. And the torque box construction is really adding to that strength. The Lafayette Truck Committee, the line officers, the Lafayette membership, board of directors have approved, and as of Thursday, Emergency Services Committee have approved the recommendation to go with the E1 ladder truck. We sent the option to the East Lamphere Township Chiefs on April of this year. And pretty much a couple questions they had around, hey, why stick versus flat versus what should you getting better and received consensus through that. So operationally, before I turn it over to Jason here, is there any questions that you guys have you might be able to answer?
Great presentation, by the way. Very easy to understand. Great setup. I don't have any questions.
So when we built this unit, we're trying to get this unit to be something that is going to last 20, 25, if not more years in service. While some people brought up in the past about, hey, it's like you get a new computer. If you put the base level stuff in, for a year or two, it's all obsolete. We're trying to go with some of the pinnacle of technology. Also with respect to all of this is proprietary. So we will have more market when it comes to replacement parts out there available to us.
Just one quick question, just so the 2007, what would happen to that when we delivered the new?
Yeah, so that'll they'll then we can sell that for estimations in here. I'll cover 50% of that would come back to the ship because that was purchased under the initial way plan, which was a 50-50 split at that point in time. So part of also the reason I really tasked these guys with really looking and analyzing what East Lamphere is going to look like over the next 20 years. We have the potential for the streetscape going down Lincoln Highway. Obviously, that affects maneuverability. All the apartment buildings are slated to be built. So when I tasked them at the outset of this, I said, you guys really need to look hard at this. And I think they did a phenomenal job at that and came up with a solution that really will last us the next 20 to 25 years. So getting to the funding part of it, if you'd have told me back in 07 when I sat on our last truck committee, I'd be up here saying it was going to cost us $1.9 million. I'd have said, yeah, right. But the cost of apparatus, as you guys have probably seen and heard, has risen significantly. To give you an idea, if we were to go with a unit similar to what we have now, we would probably be in the 2.3 to 2.4 billion range instead of the 1.9 we're at.
AP tower started. You're also very lucky that a lot of the equipment we have in the current truck, minus a couple little things, will all be transfers. So we're not going to be starting fresh with equipment here.
Good. So we went back to kind of E1, so we figured we wanted to move ahead with them to just kind of finalize the spec. In that process, the price did jump a little, about $15,000, just because of some changes we made to it when they had the opportunity to meet with the rep and check out the factory E1. And then, of course, we also had them add in the $100,000 allowance for the 2027 emissions upgrades for the motor. And that was the same rough number as Deputy Chief Keynes had mentioned we were receiving for pretty much all the manufacturers. Nobody really knows what effect that's going to have, not just the price of the engine itself, but they may need to reconfigure some of the body and other components to match up with motors. So 1.91 million was the final bid. Their lead time has jumped a little bit from what we were initially quoted, still within that range though, to 44 months, which puts delivery somewhere around February 2028, roughly. We also have $75,000 in that number for equipment mounting. Again, we feel we're well covered with that. And all the current equipment, loose equipment, will be taken off the current truck, put over onto the new truck. A lot of that equipment, we don't necessarily buy new. We buy a new piece of apparatus, we replace it as it needs to be replaced throughout that apparatus. Pricing we got from them, the contract is valid through June 6th, and they require no payments until 7 days before final inspection, which again would be early 2020. We can put more money down if we so choose to, and they would give us a 4% return on that money. Currently, the money we have invested for the apparatus is actually getting about 5 to 6%, so we're just going to leave it in that account and let it keep getting this 5 to 6% we're getting. As far as how we're going to pay, so under the current township apparatus plan, East Lamphere Township would kick in the 1.146 million. Again, that does not include the credit that you guys would receive back from the sale of the current truck. We also would then be responsible for the 764,000 or 40%. Currently, we have about 215,000 in apparatus fund, and we anticipate having 275,000 in that fund until that point in time. We have kind of a strategy that we've had for the last number of years, where for certain fundraisers, certain incoming funds get allotted to the apparatus fund, and so that's just kind of what these standard allotments would get us to. We also will have always the sale of the existing truck. We anticipate getting about 300,000 for that. Again, I don't know where the market's going to be in 4 years. We anticipate it to still be fairly solid, given the current lead times of and then obviously the remainder of that, we are currently in the silent phase of a capital campaign, which we hope to generate kind of a little bit of a lofty goal of $1 million. Ultimately the goal would be that the money that we raise through that capital campaign would cover whatever's left for this truck, and then the remainder be put into either paying down the building loan or into the apparatus next purchase down the road in a number of years. So there's a little bit of, I'll say, variability in that. With that capital campaign, we anticipate pulling at least 314,000 out of that. In the event capital campaign would totally flop, which I don't anticipate being the case. We've had some great tracking and great support from associates as well as some others that have made some commitments. We would still have the ability to take out a 2% state loan, and we may even exercise that again if we're still getting 5 or 6% in the market for our funds. We may leverage that. Makes sense at that time. So that's kind of the summary of where we would go financially to pay for this. And again, we don't have a loose equipment budget because everything we have currently will be transferred to the new piece of apparatus.
Great. How many payments on the years left on the building loan?
We're hoping if everything goes well, because we've been able to pay ahead and we have some money sitting there now in investments, and we're hoping to knock it out in about 3 to 4 years around the time.
So around the time.
Our actual loan, I think, is set. We were only paid the minimum payments would take us to 2031.
On paper it's 2030, but we are able to be done with the current engine payment.
Yeah.
And the current building payment by the time this truck arrives.
Wow.
So
Great.
that's the plan.
Yeah.
What are the current monthly payments for your current loans?
For the fire engine alone is $800 a month. And believe no basis, and that's not a year. And then we pay an interest payment each month, it's just about 53.
Even for this, what's the length of the term?
You can get a FEMA loan for up to 20 years. I would hate to go that long just because the interest gets that high. It does. The interest gets high, even though it's only at 2%. There is a cap on the amount that you can get through a FEMA loan. And I think that cap is just a little less than $100,000.
So would you be looking at 20 years or 10 or if you were to get the FEMA loan, what length of term would you be looking for?
It depends on the interest rates, but I'm thinking 5 to 10 if we would go that route. Yeah, it depends on where interest rates are at. I mean, if the rates, would happen to go down, in that 2-3% range, we're probably just going to pay the cash and not even bother. A little hard to project out 4 years from now what things look like. We're prepared to pay the cash, rather than take out the The loan is kind of just the backup, or if it makes better financial sense to get better return. You have.
So how do you fund your repairs? Because theoretically, you'd be looking at close to 100,000. You're waiting for the new truck.
Comes out with regular operating, and that would get hit 130,000 in 1 year, but the last couple of years it's been give or take. So that we build into our operating.
Then on the electronic modules, do you think those type of instruments are being built better than they were in 2007?
There does seem to be a little more, say, engineering into it now. Yeah, we're hoping they are. We anticipate they are. You know, E1, the nice part is there is, again, that sort of outside serviceability to some of that. One of the other things we found when I ran it to a couple other departments, and, you know, obviously hearing within the industry, is, you know, the electronic issues on Pierce apparatus in that mid to late 2000 to 2010 range. This is not an uncommon issue that we're experiencing. So leads me to believe it does come back to just the longevity and the quality of it. So that we're running into on the current apparatus. It's always hard to project out 20 years, you know, how well it's going to hold up. We anticipate this one holding up. Or it's here too, just in general, we have, for most things, there are going to be still a few things that are proprietary to E1 compared to Pierce. We do have better service options, and we can go outside of just the dealer.
So, go ahead.
No, keep going.
So, just curious, so if your ladder truck is down for 8 weeks or whatever, what's the backup plan?
Yeah, there is none per se within the township, but it relies on mutual aid through, you know, surrounding departments.
So Lancaster City has been.
Lancaster, yeah, there's been some changes there now.
Township,
Yeah.
they're willing to.
Yeah, at one point, if you rewind about 5 to 10 years ago, Lancaster City was not really willing to take their apparatus out of the city. Well, the turnover and changes they've had there, it's changed significantly. So yes, we would have in the as well as township, Gordonville. Start.
So good local support.
Yes, yeah, and rewind about 7. Did not have an aerial device. Strasburg did not have an aerial device. Bearville has one now. They did not have one. So there's a lot more trucks available. So, you know, in the event that it would be out of service for any period of time.
One item I didn't hear on Thursday and didn't hear again tonight, the interior space, firefighter space with how does that compare?
6 personnel, it's the same.
Yeah, the cab isn't going to be quite as roomy as the current one we have now. Frankly, that size of that cab inhibited some of our current ladder operation off the front of the piece. So that's why we made the change in that to go with basically a flat cab rather than raised roof like ours currently does.
Kind of compare the cab of the new ladder truck, almost the same as our engine too. Flat cab, straight across, still has a decent amount where you can either mount equipment, back wall, but it's not excessive compared to what we have. Not make logistical sense to put any type of weight, raised roof in there because the aerial comes out top anyway. So the only raised portion right as you're stepping.
I think the only update might have been warranty. We did talk about that a little bit at the emergency service command. I think there may have been a couple questions about it, but you thought it was fairly standard.
Standard powertrains are warranted through obviously the manufacturer. They do have a 10-year correction deal as well. Didn't upgrade it. That was part of 15,000. We got the torque box coated with their product, or not their proprietary, but their special coating is awesome. They also did. And also included that in it because if you didn't upgrade it, that wasn't part of the 10-year corrosion warranty. So, and the first year of service is pretty much the dealer's.
And where's the actual manufacturer? Where's E1? Where's it manufactured?
So their aerial plant is located in Ocala, Florida.
Assuming you'll go down for the final inspection.
Yes, pre-build and final.
And then the dealer we're operating through is Fireline Equipment, local here to
In
New
New Holland.
You actually visited the plant about a month ago and got to drive and take a tour of the
Yeah.
plant, meet with the personnel.
Good.
They had a piece that was almost identical to what we're looking at, that they were able to look at, operate, test out.
I was impressed. That thing rocketed off the line. Granted, it didn't have a lot of equipment.
That you,
Yeah,
sure.
and it says it's 15, which is what we have specified. It's smaller, but it drove like an engine. It handled beautifully. It's definitely something that I could see serving our community very well.
Better turning, much more maneuverable than the current piece of apparatus.
Have any input on it?
Okay, real well.
Good.
50 years,
I know.
really, big piece of equipment. Bigger one is actually one to Toronto, Canada.
Just
Should have had his own slide.
Mr. Hershey would make me proud if you were the first driver in 2028, February 2028. Gets delivered. Other questions from the board before we?
Question, how does this, these quotes match up with, I don't know, you mentioned several other local agencies that have similar ladder trucks. I don't know when they were purchased, but do you know what the last couple ladder trucks, what they were purchased for in our surrounding municipalities?
Yeah, it's fairly similar. Gap actually purchasing one very similar to what we're looking at. I actually ran them for a number of years before I came back to East Lampeter again. And they're all pretty much, if you look at a no pump with a rear mount ladder like we're looking at, you're gonna find most of them are about the 1.8 to 2.1 million each. Again, there's some outliers in that, mainly if they put all the bells and whistles on it. You know, we have a couple bells and whistles, but we did not, put a lot of very things. We want to make this very to get the job done.
Questions? Ted? Any?
No, I mean, I have a lot of respect for the time you guys put into this. It sounds like you did your homework. So we appreciate that. Community will appreciate it as well. So thank you all.
Appreciate you guys letting me come here to present.
Other questions before a motion? Thanks for serving on ESC. I know a lot of good conversation. And just to echo Ted, thank you guys. We appreciate volunteer firefighters that risk your lives every single day for a paycheck of zero, right? So really appreciate it.
Motion.
Sure.
Motion that we accept and approve the purchase of the new ladder truck as presented, the E1 ladder truck. Yep.
Second.
Made by Mike, second by Roger. Yeah. Motion made by Mike, second by Roger. Any other public comment or board comment? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Congrats. Thank you.
Thank you.
Looking forward to signing a check, or at least my predecessor, whoever has voted in after me.
The only problem, everything's so fresh.
Exactly.
The way it is.
Thank you, guys. Okay, you don't have to stay for the rest of the meeting. I mean, you're welcome to stay, but Izzy Sutton's trying to leave in the back. Good to see everyone. Yeah. Yep, see you, Jeff. Thank you. Thank you. Controlling for me. And hey, okay, next on the agenda, we have 8A, request to terminate ECHO agreement 2149 Way.
Yeah, this property agreement in place for a while, no longer has a family member there and they're planning to sell the property and move. So the normal process is to terminate the agreement in this way.
Motion to terminate the Echo termination agreement.
Second by Roger. Made by Ethan, second by Roger. Any public comment for this item? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, 9A, Rockville Parcel 2 Land Development Plan, 2332 35 South Willowdale Drive.
Good evening. My name is Chris Benarchik with RGS Associates, joined by Jeffrey Fernbach of Fernmore Homes. And as I point out, we're here tonight to talk about the Rockville outlets. So we all know there's been a lot of discussion about the revitalization of that center. So again, that's why we're here tonight. This is really the first step of that after the master planning stage. So this is now, the engineered land development plan. This is the first phase of it, if you will. The applicant is MP Lancaster LLC. Just like to give a little bit of a background, we can go into the proposed site plan and then where we stand with our current process. Probably should point out is that 35 South Willowdale Drive, up on the map there, it would be the portion on the left side of South Willowdale Drive. The area is the C3 Regional Commercial Zoning District. The existing site is currently occupied by a parking lot, as well as about a 38,000 square foot commercial retail building, and about another 38,000 or so square feet of what I'll call foundation, where there previously was retail space. I mentioned this is the first step in introducing a residential use onto the Rockville property as part of the overall master plan. And this also redistributes the existing commercial on the property to the vacant location on the site. And as you can remember from the history of what's here, the decline in the center, going to again reinvigorate the property with the residential use. Again, take that commercial space that maybe isn't ideally located in the back and redistribute that to the perimeter of the property where it's more recognizable as commercial space. So then the proposed plan, what we're looking at here tonight is about, again, it's parcel 2 specifically, about 7 acres where we're proposing 4 new multifamily buildings. Those would be 4-story buildings. Each building would contain 32 units for a total of 128 multifamily units. This is all part of the commercial redevelopment overlay district where it resides, as well as exercising the underutilized shopping center ordinance. So as far as walking through the plan, the northern part of the project, we have an access drive that will come in off of the private access drive that exists on the property, and then another access drive into the parking lot on the south side of the property, directly connecting into South Willowdale Drive. That would be your vehicular access into that parking lot body. That would be just to the east of the 4 buildings. No new streets are proposed as part of this initial first phase. No subdivision of the lot that's out there today will remain. And as far as impervious goes, again, as you can imagine, being an older shopping center, the ordinance for this lot is 70% maximum impervious coverage. Impervious coverage out there today is around 80%. What we're looking at there with the rendered plan for parcel 2 would drop that all the way back down to about 49%. So a significant introduction of green space and removing that impervious area. I kind of rolled right into the discussion with stormwater and how we're handling that. Obviously, the whole site gets regraded. We will use the grading to direct drainage where we want it to go. That drainage will be collected in a series of inlets and pipes and so forth to be conveyed to the perimeter systems that exist on the property. Well, again, the bonuses of doing a redevelopment is you're able to utilize that existing infrastructure such as sewer, water, roadways, stormwater management. So along with this application, obviously we submitted to the conservation district, being delegated by DEP for the MPDS permit. And that's already gone through its review process. We actually have already obtained that approval from the conservation district. As far as public water, it would be served by the city of Lancaster, and then sewer would be the sewer authority. With this project, we've been in dialogue with the township. We have passed the letters for the 128 dwelling units, but I know we're still working through that overall master plan with sewer and water on the whole entire project. Again, the balance of that project being on that east side of South Willowdale Road. And that is something we want to and talk about and continue to have that dialogue with the town, making sure we can accomplish the big picture goal here. You may remember we came to the township really with around 300 units, and we were told, hey, they get more, we got around 400. And back to the drawing table again, when it was encouraged to try to better utilize it for even increased density. So 128 on first part 2, we finish out part 5, which would be the one across Willowdale Drive there. In total, you'd be looking at 4 units for everything. So traffic, as far as that's concerned, back when the underutilized shopping center ordinance was written, it worked in how you handle traffic. And being where this is, again, it was a part that was very active at a shopping center with lots of traffic. It was written in as long as you don't exceed that by 10%, with your proposed condition that further traffic studies would not be required. We provided information with that respect, showing that we're not exceeding that 10% threshold. In fact, your ordinance says that if you exceed 100 trips, if you introduce 100 trips in your plan, then you warrant a traffic impact study. In our case, the highest introduction of trips is 40. So we're within that. So grand total, you end up either being very comparable or actually reducing the number of trips. When you look at this overall master plan, you're consistent with and parcel 2 as well. So as far as where we stand, the plan was submitted, reviewed by your township engineer. We have that letter is dated February 9th, 2024. We did have about 5 modifications or waivers that were part of our application as well. Not uncommon when you have a redevelopment. Happy to walk through those one by one if you'd like for explanation. And of course, we were at the Planning Commission last week, where the plan was recommended for approval, conditional approval, addressing February 9th letter from your township engineer. And the township engineer, in fact, does in his letter recommended support for the modification that are requested.
Yeah, so I see granted all the way down. Maybe if there's any questions from board, we can touch on any of them. I'm not sure we need to go through the first 6 for waivers and modifications, unless there's any questions. Few more minutes. You should know. Any questions, Ben? You good? That's all. Roger, any questions? I got a thumbs up from Mike for the chat. Good. Okay. On the zoning, looks like pretty easy about anything.
You walk us through the parking piece there. Sure. Yeah, and just for awareness, you have number 1, zoning. That's just some site data information we'll address on the cover sheet. Sure. Number 2, talks about the parking, not uncommon. I've been here with other projects where the question is, hey, why do you have so much parking, or explain the parking that is provided? So we just use the ordinance. The required parking is 176 for parcel 2. We provide 180, so it's only 4 more spaces than your ordinance says as a minimum. But it does say, hey, provide some justifications for reduction. So we are taking a 10% reduction as outlined in your ordinance because of the access to public transportation. So we're obviously going to have, we feel, a very ample pedestrian network through this, as we have demonstrated through the master plan. So when you look at that reduction, the 10% reduction, that's where we come in with that 176 that we're proposing. We also have, which we're happy to resubmit to the township, the applicant did provide a study, and obviously they're developer familiar with other similar projects. Study that Rutgers did, Rutgers Center for Real Estate, where they break down how you should address parking for similar, what you would call, say, mid-rise apartment buildings, whether it be studio 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom. So we broke that down, and using that analysis, just as an example, that came up with showing that we should have 173.
Ethan probably wants less, so.
The note was to provide that justification, so if you have that study showing, 73.
Yeah.
Less is. That next one for 10 years. Exactly. You go, know where he's going before he even goes there. So, you go with that?
Yep.
Okay. Keep going. Chris.
Number 3, you're fine with?
Yeah.
Pleasure.
Oh, yeah, I looked at that. That was a graph. You need to adjust that. So,
And you should, within that development, assuming you're okay with all of the comments in here.
yeah, I think with number 1, I guess we're to work with staff on capacity. We had a capacity letter that was issued, saying capacity was available, which would then negate the need to go for sewer planning module, which is number 2. That is one of the things I think, we're gonna stay very close to, or working with the township on big picture with parcel number 5. And I don't know, Jeff may wants to say something about that, and just how, we're trying to obviously move the project along as fast as we can. Sounds like we're okay on parcel 2. We're already working on the design for parcel 5, but it sounds like we need to make sure sewer is going to be available in a timely fashion to make that happen. Financial security, we've already provided that. That will be adjusted based on the feedback from the township engineer. We'll resubmit that with the package. 4, I did have correspondence with staff about Rockvale Road. This dialogue occurred way back in master planning. I think I don't want to put words in the mouth of the township or staff, but understanding was that Rockvale Road, we wanted to get for right of way to provide the full 30 feet from center line into our site, which we provide on our plan. But as far as the cartway goes, there's already a curb established there, and the desire was not to make it wider. Term was not to make it a racetrack, trying to be respectful of those properties on the southern side, those single family homes there on the southern side. So I understand to hold that line of Rockvale Road. Again, already curved. And then as far as the sidewalk, we have addressed in our modification, we show the multimodal path. I probably should have mentioned that earlier. Comes along the western edge where all that landscaping is shown, sweeps down along and runs parallel with Rockvale Road. But we do have a meander to it. That's a 12-foot wide multimodal path versus just a straight shot sidewalk. So we are providing that pedestrian circulation.
The number 5, the feasible parkland calculation.
Yeah. I mean, we obviously provide a lot of open space. We're looking at providing a tot lot. I think what we can do is with multimodal path, we would pay a fee in lieu of dedication of actual land for park and rec, and then we'd seek credit for that multimodal path, being that would be available to the public. And then the last is the drainage comment there. That was just a CAD thing that's already been corrected on the plan. And number 2, I mentioned we already used PDS permit.
We've done a calculation for that credit and fee. Easy on it.
Yeah, good question. Yeah, I'm assuming that will some future point.
I expect, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. I think it's 0.27. Yeah, I don't know.
0.027 acres. Yeah.
So I think it ended up being 4.35. I'm really relying on memory.
Yeah, that's fine. And we'll discuss that in the future. Yeah. And then stormwater management, comments. Yeah. I just have a question. Any questions from other board members on the DNA letter, February 9th? Yeah.
Couple things I want to clarify.
Sure.
With respect to the traffic impact,
Actually, I have a question.
what Chris referenced was the traffic analysis not requiring this project to go through conditional use. So, and when he's talking about what's in the Saldo, he's only talking about the 128 units. So as the additional units come in, there will be traffic impacts to be analyzed, and that'll come in those next phases. With respect to the DEP planning module for sanitary sewer, staff does expect you're going to have to do that based upon what we've learned and what we communicated to everybody already. Parcel 2, you wanted to do it parcel by parcel, so there's There's only 18 on parcel 2, so you're gonna need.
Maybe that was miscommunicated then. I think we have a capacity that does state that there's 128. Maybe, I guess a clarification I think would be helpful then.
We've already provided,
Change that.
we've already provided that information through the sewer authorities council.
We just take a step back. So, Chris, what have you heard? What do you guys believe?
I'll try to explain when we reached out to the township to say, hey, is there capacity available? We received a letter that said capacity was available for parcel 2. That came from the authority engineer HRG. Then we had a meeting with staff that communicated 128 EDUs were available for the project.
Total for everything.
Right.
Okay.
So I guess are we not able to apply that to parcel 2? And then I think lately, maybe it was as in the last day or two of business day, it totaled 127. So it seems to be variable. And I think that's part of our challenge is we are very excited to move the project forward, but it seems like this may be something that could jeopardize that.
So
I think there's a miscommunication. We didn't change the, we want them to apply to per se at all. We were asking questions. We didn't change it.
We're gonna have to deal with that through the authority.
yeah, I was gonna say, is that jurisdiction or the sewer authority jurisdiction?
Ultimately, it will impact whether or not they need to do a planning module for this process.
So from our end, how we can develop, if you're not asking for additional capacity, you don't go through the sewer planning module process. Or if you're not creating another lot. In this case, this lot is existing, we're not subdividing it, so it checks that box. And then as far as capacity, we were under the impression that the 120 were available to this lot for Rockville, the first stage of the project.
There's some demolition of it, downsizing of the existing,
Yeah, I mean, it's not your usual project. Yeah. Obviously, you've got vacant stores that are now not using capacity.
Right.
So that was really what our inquiry was, is what is available to this project. We'd like to apply it to parcel 2, recognizing that since the beginning, it was viewed as a single project master. So I think, some of our correspondence, we had first asked to look at it across the entirety of the project. And then the focus shifted to parcel 2 once we realized, well, we're not going to have capacity for the entire project. Let's just focus on getting it being the parcel 2. And then as parcel 2 is, say, hopefully moving into construction, we can then be focused on parcel 5.
So the challenge we have is that the board of supervisors is aware of the issues here about the sewer. Perhaps I should make you aware of what's happening. Obviously, this is a development that the board said a year ago at the concept plan stage. And we had numbers into the town before that, before we purchased the property. Only recently, 6 months, 4 to 6 months ago, we found out that the NUA does not have an idea of what's available in terms of capacity in this area at all. Potentially, there couldn't be a second unit, but that attaches to that one. The only thing that was available to us is only demolition. Not one unit was available. Not one EDU was available, other than what we're taking away. So potentially, there's no development can happen in this county. Since we're taking that away, so that was a big surprise because obviously this is a united plan, concept plan to build these 480 units that you're looking at with a central clubhouse, and it's an attempt to raise the bar. That's what this is in terms of the housing, the housing in the area, and every part of it is that clubhouse full of the amenities. We were assuming that, and it was saying you can build the western side, and give it those 100 months. It was still a change, just when. What's unknown as well. When this will happen, it'll be 3, 4, 5 years before this
other side is ready for construction. It's unknown at this time. That causes us, some stress. We didn't come in with the 4 buildings without amenities in the shopping center. That's not, so we were looking for some speed on the negotiations with the NUA. It's been very difficult and very slow. We had we presented something to the NUA 2 months ago. I got a response a couple days ago. And certainly miscommunication. So it'd be lovely if we can get to a better, sit around a table and try to hash this out as opposed to this months-long back and forth. That would be helpful if the board can advise us how do we move this along. In an interim basis, we're considering that what we can do here to get some amenities. If I can just step up, there's a vacant commercial space that right behind these units. There could be a triangular looking building there. That space is currently, and we'd like to reserve that as long as the clubhouse is ready. And the first residence, we're going to have that used as a leasing center, management office, as well as some amenities, gym, billiards table, whatever we can offer to have some amenities initially while kind of wait for whatever's going to happen here. Make sure that makes sense to you guys. If that makes sense to the ordinance or to the zoning, whatever's on the line is. I want to come across that problem. So hopefully that works. We're looking at different options as to how to move this forward. And make sure input how to do this. But we don't want to see this delayed years. Just the first one.
Thank you for that. Thanks for that context. Questions from the board on what's in front of us so far?
Maybe some clarification of staff would be helpful of who makes the calculation of the necessary EDUs from this, and how many have they gotten in credit from the demolition?
Well, the number available is based upon the amount of planning that's been done in the past for the use that was there. And so
What that number was?
127 is the number that we arrived at from looking at the historical billing as well as the uses that were on the site.
For the whole thing or just?
Parcel 2 and parcel 5. Those are the number that are available.
Okay. And we're trying to build 128 units specifically on parcel 2.
And that's what kind of threw us off. Is we met with staff in this room. We point blank asked the question that you just asked us. We need a starting point. We cannot export capacity from DEP until we know what we're asking for. We start out with 10, we need 15, we need 5 more. So I agree. I think it's challenging to get that answer, but with all due respect, recognize it's a complex puzzle because of it being a redevelopment. I think that at that time it was communicated 128, so 127 just arrived last week, which threw us off. So that's why again we're kind of like, it seems to be a moving target. We need a solid answer on what to do. Yeah, and we've got engineers in our office. We took a crack at trying to assess that as well, and one of them came up with I think 155. The DP has a spreadsheet that they use for you to assign usage based on type of draw there is on the system. Not by any means saying, hey, it should be 155. It was more of, hey, let's see what we come up with, just like we do with cost opinions. We'll come up with a cost, and then township engineer will come up with a cost and see what makes sense.
Yeah, that has not been shared with staff. So
Again, yeah, keep going.
part of the challenge, of course, is as you guys know, the authority meets once a month.
Yeah.
So decision making takes some time to go through discussions and making decisions. But we've been working aggressively, and I believe the authority has been as well. In fact, at their last meeting, they decided to go forward with metering of the existing flow, which is the initial process that needs to happen in order to determine how much space is available in the collection and transmission system. There's treatment capacity, but the question is collection and transmission they decided to move forward despite not having an agreement in place yet with Mr. Furman.
Yeah, I mean, I'll speak for myself and I hope others agree or they disagree, they can say that as well, but I want this project to move forward, right? I think you said it earlier and I agree, you came with a number of units and we asked you to increase it, right? And so I want this to go as fast as we can make it, but it sounds like the sewer authority, is the decision maker on this. Unless you're telling something different, that we can help in some way.
Right, in terms of capacity available in the collection and transmission system, that has to go through the authority.
Yeah. What jurisdiction do we have for this decision anyway?
Well, it would be a typical condition of approval that DP sewer planning module, if required, would have to go to the.
So what, is there a concern that, I mean, so their capacity based off of historical billing that we're aware of for both parcel 2 and parcel 5. So all those buildings are knocked down. They did have 127. Is there a problem applying those 127 to this parcel 2?
Typically, the way the planning modules are done is the planning is done by parcel. So, we looked at the number of units that were existing on parcel 2, which we determined to be 18 by the historical use there. So that's what's available on parcel 2.
I think what's concerning to us is if it's accurate that there's not another available EDU in this corridor, technically any plan that would come before you that would rely on this conveyance system cannot be approved. I don't know if that's still the case in the findings and research. Obviously that affects other projects other than ours, but found that alarming. That corridor is at its max. Oh, no.
It's not, it's a better term.
So it's unknown. When was the last new development we approved out there?
This portion of the collection system is probably square.
Was there capacity calculation at that point to that location?
There would have been a planning module process for the property at that time.
So they would have just had to show that they had capacity for that project and no additional. So our sewer authority doesn't set a capacity at all. It's basically each new development has to figure it out.
Pretty much it's development by development, in any part of the system there's that, an infiltration. So trying to determine how much of the pipe is being used at any point in time, requires analysis, metering and analysis. So the authority is concerned about, where the system is at this point in time. And
Did that previous development do a study, do metering?
I don't believe they did at that time. It's been a number of years. Again, retail space, different than residential use.
Did the hotel go in more recently, right at the top of the hill, True by Hill?
Flows the other direction. It's not involved in this part of the collection system.
Good questions, comments?
Is it possible for us to say you can use the EDUs historically from 2 lots for 1 piece of development?
I'm not able to answer that question. I'd have to get some assistance with that.
Good to get.
Can I ask a couple
Sure, just if you just want to state your name
Sure.
for us.
The retail portion of this property, which is counting on the residential portion to bring, new tenants. How are you gonna figure out if they're wanting to use, they're expecting the 100? If we were tonight, you want them a little confused of the process. And I'm just a lay person trying to figure this out and try to help them. Like, how are we gonna figure out if they're gonna approve it or not? Is that the sewer authority?
As far as the use of the system, ultimately it will be the sewer authority, yes.
So is that something where we have to wait like another month for another meeting to see them? Or is that something that you're gonna email them, they're gonna respond pretty promptly?
The sewer authority's solicitor has provided a response to the agreement and proposed an agreement to resolve that issue.
You were saying it's been sent, but you haven't gotten it, you haven't seen it?
Yeah, we have their response.
Oh, you have it, okay.
Response. We're gonna change from 128, but they go to 127. Why change 128, 27? Yeah.
Just I requested additional analysis of the history and we did that.
Is the entire Lincoln Highway corridor that the sewer line is impacting?
The
Beyond Mill Creek Square? Beyond Mill Creek Square?
The authority is concerned about the portion of the system that serves Aquia Square, that system.
Okay, yeah, please go.
Yeah, I mean, what? A couple of weeks ago, we were retaining counsel to commence litigation because there wasn't a response and we weren't getting answers. We were getting obtuse answers. Not sure that that's not the best route forward. After hearing what we're going tonight, it's unfortunate, but not our issue is not the way. It's the way, not knowing what the development is here. That we have no idea what's available. The development to begin with, it's just mind blowing. And disappointing from where we came from, that we're in this position today. To work or anxious to get to resolve it. But if we need a different approach, we'll have to do that, fortunately.
I don't think we have a copy of the letter that the Sewer Authority Council sent to. Yeah, is that correct? In any of our documents?
That is probably correct, yes.
Is there, I guess I made some comments just a few minutes ago about, from my perspective, about trying to help you out, move this forward. I'd love to hear comments from other board members, if they're in agreement with that or not. And honestly, I don't know what we can do as for supervisors to influence the sewer authority, but I'm happy to hear other ideas. My understanding after listening is this question is whether they're required to go through DEP planning module. Question is whether we are allowed to basically apply the historical credits of 127 based off of our looking at the historical billing records for 2 parcels to 1 parcel.
Yeah.
And what staff has stated is they cannot tell us if they can make that decision or if we can make that decision without assistance. If you would clarify, does that mean we need to seek legal counsel to make sure if we can do that or not?
Yes.
Okay. So I would recommend we go that route ASAP because I want to see this project move forward. Get counsel to look at that. We need to make it 127. I'm pretty sure they could probably figure out a way to make this 127 units and get it moving because I think for this project, there is going to be some planning that needs to be done to complete the entire master plan and figuring out what capacity we have in that sewer line that goes in. Like I said, we have treatment capacity. We're unsure whether we have the capacity through the pipe. So we do need to figure that out for the whole project. But as an investor and a business owner, you need to start cash flowing this and getting the project moving. And I think we should be doing everything in our power to accelerate that and get that moving. So the sooner we could get advice from council about whether we can apply those EDUs from 2 parcels to 1, if we can do that, we should do it. And if possible, we could condition based upon an agreement that we've reviewed with our solicitor to do so. So that's my thoughts.
I agree.
So that's accurate. The delay is whether or not the state has to be engaged on the planning module. Because there's a contention about how many EDUs are. We feel there was only 18 EDUs to parcel 2. But you're stating, well, we should apply 127 to parcel 2 and no module would be needed. Is that right? Is that what you were thinking?
Yeah, so they've demolished buildings on parcel 5 or planning to, which you've demolished and cleared. What I'm hearing from the applicant is, and from staff is, add up all of those from 2 parcels and that gives us 127 that we've historically billed for those 2 parcels. They need 128. We're close enough to get there. But typically we only apply from 1 parcel to that parcel, but I mean, it's all going in the same. If we had capacity for 127 before and you knock down all the buildings, we should have capacity for 127 to put back in there. That seems
Yeah,
reasonable.
we also like to discuss, but we did have a chance to meet with staff about the number, but it's 155, 128, 127. Well, it's like, compromise between, we just.
Yeah, I think bringing that data to the town.
And asking to review because we've had other issues with historical calculations of.
Support all. That's for.
It would be good to also see if the sewer authority has sent any notification, to at least see what that is.
Okay, other comments from the board? Okay. I know since the planning commission, there was a letter from Chief Gribble from Bronx Fire Company. Chris, did you receive that letter? It's actually an email.
It's about one of them was the hydrants and then provided, it looks like a drawing showing where the hydrants were located.
I don't think that was. That was not, the planning commission did not have that email during their.
So. I submitted January 19th, so that post dates, that you said February. Yeah, not be reflected in that last plan that was.
Yeah, I just likely would make it contingent based on that email. You can have it.
Okay, yeah, that's great.
It looks like it responded to that with this drawing.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Yeah, and the size of the hydrant. Okay. Good. Well, other comments? Anything else we next?
If there's any questions, do you have any comments on the county planning commission letter?
We actually responded to that on that last submission, so no concerns. I do have a copy of that if we want to walk through. Private street agreements with South Willowdale, that's a private street, so I think it's already, big reasons for that. Tree protection zone. I think what existing vegetation is even out there, because again, it's almost all paved, but.
They're fine. They're fine.
Love pine trees.
Sir?
Older grows.
I mean, to get everything there with the change of grade, we show that 12-foot multimodal path. We're going to be introducing new landscaping, so any things that are to remain, we would protect, but some may need to go just to implement the plan. And then number 3, lighting plan, we have that.
Any other comments, from staff?
I think it's worth mentioning that the planning commission, they did bring up having a pedestrian lane from the top two buildings here, basically just carrying a sidewalk over the multimodal. The idea was if somebody comes out of the building, getting them the ability to walk around the back straight to the compactor that's back in this area. We did talk about that. What I wasn't aware of is that the community is compact, it's not a typical refuse mover. So in similar communities, they're encouraged to actually take their trash to the compactor. And the idea is they didn't want people dragging a bag and suddenly it's ripping open and stuff's falling out all over the path. So we were saying we don't desire to make that connection for that reason. We don't encourage people to just go bag by bag to the compactor. So at least bring that up since that was discussed in the planning commission.
That compactor is meant to serve the entire, not just these few buildings. It's not buildings.
So after the Township Planning Commission, they recommended conditional approval of the plan, all requested waivers, plan modifications. I don't see those comments in there specifically. The comment about the trash compactor and the link.
They asked to consider it.
Okay, just has to consider it. Okay, got it. Understood. You've considered it and you're not. Understood. All good. Okay.
I guess just since we're here, any need for a modification for curb line? And we talked that through, wasn't under the impression that that would require modification, but just in case it would.
I don't think so, but that would be up to the board.
Any comments from?
Just to be clear, the curb to curb width of Rockville Road is 24 feet.
Okay.
Existing.
Yeah. And they're not changing in any way.
Not proposing to.
Right.
That doesn't feel
It's necessary.
So their township staff will determine what part of the width is required at this time.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. Okay. So we make a motion, Ethan? Yeah. Sounds good.
Make a motion to approve the final land development plan for Rockville Parcel 2. Conditioned on the township DNA letter dated February 9th, 2024, granting waivers, modifications 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Granting 1 through 5. Then just mentioning on subdivision of land development, item 4, the existing curbing on Rockville Road and street width is not intended to be changed as part of this plan. And then condition also on the county planning letter dated November 30th, 2023. The letter from Chief Gribble dated February 5th, 2024, and conditioned on successful application of the required EDUs for the property. After staff consults with our solicitor regarding the ability to apply historical EDUs from both parcel 2 and parcel 5 to the project on parcel 2.
To just add, maybe subject to resolution of that collection just before that, rest of what you just said. Is it subject to resolution of that?
Yeah, will be subject to an agreement because it's of us saying you have the EDUs, so they have to demonstrate, our solicitor has to sign off that they've got those EDUs and resolve the question of whether historical EDUs can be used from parcel 2 and 5 for the project. Parcel 2.
I understand the motion.
Second.
Okay. Excuse me, I'm not going to repeat it. there any question from staff on the motion?
Was the Grove Miller letter included in your?
The traffic,
Continue with, and condition on the Grove Miller traffic letter dated March 8th, 2024.
That's my second.
so motion made by Ethan, seconded by Ted. Any board comment, public comment, applicant comment?
I'll just say that, we're excited for this project to get started, so we'll help out if we can, and I'm sure staff will try to expedite things for you as well.
Appreciate that. We're very excited for it.
I'll second that. I do hope that staff and the data that you share, that we can come to some sort of agreement on that, and hopefully our solicitor agrees with that interpretation. So, okay, so we have a motion made, second. Any other comment? That all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris. Thanks for standing. Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, we have 9B, request for waiver of land development planning, 2410, 2165, New Holland Pike. Anyone here for this item? Yeah. Hey, yeah.
I'm Chris Strom. I'm Strom Contracting. Representing Manor Code. We're proposing to put on an addition, 170 square feet, an enclosed space, solely so that people can go from one floor to the other without basically having to go out to the weather. We're asking for a waiver of land development. We're working with Matthew Mack Engineering for a stormwater plan. The addition is, the area where the addition is going to be is already impervious. And we're basically replacing the same area with impervious, and then with removing, it's about 20% of the new addition square footage. The demo of a sidewalk, I think it is. 2 houses.
Good. Sounds good. And staff's fine with the. Sounds great. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, motion.
Okay.
Accept the development plans number 24-10 for 2165 New Holland Pike as presented.
Second. Like second by Roger. Any other public comment, board comment? Trick is coming after a big plan like that and fired at that.
Well, they're going to go first, really.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Motion passes. Good luck.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, we have 9C supervisor discussion items, housing plan implementation.
Discussed at the last meeting, board discussion and staff's memo prepared and passed on to the township planning team, who reviewed and discussed it in a meeting last week and recommended that the board move forward with recommended in the memo of May.
Okay, so has everyone had a chance to take a look at the memo?
The first one is the accessory development with religious uses. So the piece in here sort of expands on the initial recommendation, which adds sort of multiple accessory dwelling units. That could be done in the to actually allow 1 or 2 accessory units to any primary use, which is also one of the recommendations that didn't make it to the this document, which was adding accessory dwelling units as an accessory to any primary allowance. That was my proposal. A religious use is a primary allowed use, so that's one I would recommend moving up. That would require a rewrite of the ordinance. We can keep that current one as a third highest priority, but moving accessories to a primary use, move that up into the current second highest priority. Similarly, allow accessory dwelling unit by right, or an echo or a second attached dwelling. Yeah, as a smaller text amendment, and then look at rewriting whether we want to change those other uses, adding the accessory dwelling unit. Those ones, if we're specifying, you can do one of these things as opposed to all of them. And then finally, the last one of the tiny home community one, there's a few pieces that we could consider that would allow us to continue with that prior to the Uniform Construction Code being changed. So one of them would be to allow for existing types of tiny home communities like we have in other locations in Lancaster County, which would allow long-term stays at a tiny home campground where the tiny home is not the primary residence of the occupant. So the current tiny home estates up in Mount Joy, that's the way they're functioning. No one living in the tiny home estates, that is their primary residence. It's a secondary residence for all those folks. It's zoned as a campground, which is how they're able to use the park style RV models as their units. And that's how it's functioning there. Those folks have a primary residence, legal residence that's different from the tiny home estates communities. So that's one change we could look at. They're doing it in Mount Joy. We could look at adopting a similar ordinance here. Secondarily, we could also draft language that would allow for a tiny home community where the units are built to the residential building code. There's other tiny home communities in the state that already exist where the units are built to the residential building code. So this could be used now, but then would also have greater applicability should the state actually update the legislation to allow tiny homes built to a different building code than the current residential building code. So those are my two recommendations. Is I don't think we should remove the tiny home option from the list. We should continue to do some research and see if we can copy existing ordinances, zoning changes that exist in the state and the county. So those are the three reasons to do that.
With respect to the suggestion of tiny homes, I don't think we need to change anything in the ordinance to have tiny homes in campgrounds. They could do that now.
You can now, but you're limited to stay to 30 days. So Mount Joy does not limit stays to 30 days.
So essentially, it's a campground.
So so you can have campgrounds where people may sleep in it, 300 days of the year, or 64 days a year, or even 365 days of the year, but they have a legal address that is their permanent residence that is not on the campground property. That's how they do it in Mount Joy with tiny home estates.
And why is that a positive thing?
Because what they're building for those tiny homes are RV style. So if you go to like a KOA campground, you stay in a cabin, that's not a house built to the residential building code. That's an RV style cabin built to an ISO rating, which is different, but not the same as the residential building code that the state of Pennsylvania has adopted. So you can't legally live in that as your primary residence. You have to have a secondary residence. That is your primary legal residence somewhere else, which changes where you pay taxes, where your kids go to school, where you get your mail, things like that.
So staff would have to investigate all of that.
Yeah, it would be. So I think again, I would move it to the lowest priority, but take it off of the list of things to be looked at in the next couple of years. So moving to the bottom of our list, and say, can we look at Mountjoy's zoning ordinance, or the ones in Dauphin County, where we have existing tiny home communities that are functioning, and say, could we make similar changes to allow for similar things that currently exist in those locations?
I don't know enough about what they're actually doing for those communities in that piece right now. I know you're saying kind of, well, why don't we find out more about them? But if you said, put that down the road, that maybe we can look at that later. I don't have a problem with putting it down the road because there's enough to do here.
So this was one of the recommendations from staff and that we accepted. It's things we're not looking at considering at this time.
Yeah, from our perspective, at this time was the important.
That's what it sounds like.
It's not a forever.
So it's just a low priority.
Yeah. Other things on our low priority list have a timeline of March of 2026. So we're
So
a couple years
sometime
down.
after probably March 2026.
That's where I would put it as something we should look at, but
So maybe it's not being considered, maybe we just rename that 2026 forward. For those,
Yeah, I'm opposed to looking into it more. It's just, there's a lot of work to be done.
because the reasoning here is not, these already exist in neighboring communities. We could update our ordinance to match what they're already doing. And if we chose, then we could adopt that. We don't have to wait for the state to update the Uniform Construction Code.
Last thing I'm going to say about it is, our perspective was we're trying to get 720 units in the township beyond what's already planned. Doing that isn't going to add new units.
Unless you did the secondary piece mentioned, which is you can have tiny home communities that are built to the residential building code, which would be units.
If they're built to the residential building code, they're units.
Then it's a development.
Same as anything else.
But to set up one of those communities, you're looking at changing lot sizes and setbacks to do essentially it's prefabbed homes in a place where you're sharing water sewer connections and doing land lease. Similar but different, similar to but slightly different from a manufactured home park, but at a much smaller scale than a larger manufactured home park. Because it's not a manufactured home, and it's not necessarily built on lot. It's usually a prefab unit that is built to the universal building code.
so for tiny homes, I think what I'm hearing is, at least from a couple of comments made, we all agree it's lower priority. It's not a no, it's just near the bottom of the list for.
I just don't want
You
to.
just don't want it to be taken on.
Yeah.
Understood. And I
At this time is a good one to, we have other reports here that are things that are kind of ongoing and they're there. And we'll get progress reports on these things, so.
So I already forgot your other comments for the ones higher that you had suggestions.
You want to move
One was the one from my recommendation that didn't make this list that would address
Third priority.
the allow accessory dwelling units to any primary use.
Yeah.
The previous one. In those areas mentioned, which is go through, but residential districts, mixed use districts, village districts.
Yeah. So any comment from staff just on ADUs for the other districts that they're not currently allowed by right?
Well, they're allowed by right if there's a home, single tenant. So it's basically where they're already allowed.
Yeah.
Accessory to a single family home would be as well as any other primary use.
Modify which of these?
Third highest priority, the top.
Well, it wouldn't necessarily modify, it's the one that comes from the recommendations that's not on this map.
Yeah, it's a missing.
So it's under page 2 of my list of recommendations, which we went through, which was accessory dwelling units. So allow them with any permitted use in areas that currently allow accessory apartments.
maybe staff could just take a look at that former recommendation from Ethan and see where that would fit. Would that fit into the third highest priority ADU? Or does it fit into the second highest priority? Is it a zoning text amendment?
I mean, the small technical amendment would be basically it's missing in village residential, right?
Understood. Yeah.
But it would also be applicable to a mixed use.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can just say it one more time.
So this is allowing accessory dwelling units with any permitted use in areas that currently allow accessory apartments. So most like our village general, our mixed use areas, those areas we currently allow 2 accessory apartments as an accessory to a commercial use. But there are other uses, churches or post offices and other things that are allowed by right in other zoning districts such as village residential, where there's a house on both sides of the property, but the primary use on that property is not residential. And those folks would then be allowed to add 1 or 2 accessory dwelling units in the back, just like their neighbors would who currently have a residential.
You're just talking about the village residential zone.
Okay. But the wording there of any primary use that's allowed, so currently one of the other ones that is not covered under current zoning, my understanding is in our other mixed use zones is we allow an accessory to a commercial use, but there's non-commercial primary uses, namely churches, that could also be applied. So if we just said, if you can have a primary use, you can have an accessory apartment similar to a commercial use, then that would catch the other things like nonprofits, churches, post offices. Again, not many potential, but it's that's a small technical amendment, not a rewrite. The one they're proposing here of rewriting the religious uses to allow based off of lot coverage, I think is a great idea, but I also agree it's a lower priority item.
Yeah.
So I'd keep that one where it is, but the one that is missing is adding the ADU as an accessory. No, in all of this, so what I had said before, and having the memo there is allow accessory apartments with any permitted use in areas that currently allow accessory apartments. Going to have more applicability in the village residential, but it would also have applicability in the other zones, namely with churches.
I think you had another one.
And the other one is just the ag zone. Currently in the ag zone, we allow echo units, but we don't require sewer. We allow a second single family home by special exception. So it'd be one of his. So staff is saying, were we to add ADUs, we would have to change those other ones. And my recommendation is we still could do those changes, but we could also just add an accessory dwelling unit now. Then to say, if you have that, you can have one of these things, you can't have all of them. Which would be the same thing they would do in parcels less than 10 acres. Because those ones also have echo homes. It's an echo or an ADU. So the recommendation there is the same level of change it would take for the less than 10 acres. We could add in
ADUs
greater than 10 acres as well.
Okay. Anything else, Ethan? Okay. Yeah, I think it's a great list. I like overall, love the order. I think it makes a ton of sense, the order that you have it in currently. That was my takeaway. I think, the lower priority items, on the back of the page, 5 per year, the rental inspection program, again, adding 0. I think you've ordered these in a way where you're getting the biggest bang for the buck for what I would say the lowest effort or at least lower effort, which I think makes a ton of sense. So it makes, good job. And again, thanks Ethan for your comments as well. I would ask to, take into account Ethan's comments, maybe come back to a future, maybe the next meeting, just with any additional updates, and then we can have maybe a discussion. Are there other comments for this document from staff?
No.
Yeah, nothing from staff, from board. Okay, great. Okay, let's move on. We have township website. Thank you.
Yes, we had, discussions about changes to the township website. Staff has been working on many of those changes, and we've implemented the ones that we felt that staff had the capability to implement, and went out for the ones that we felt we didn't have capability. We went back to our website design firm, RedX, and asked them for a proposal on completing those items. This was an unbudgeted item when we were putting it together last year, so just wanted more direction on if you want us to move forward with those items in the RedX proposal. I do think that because it is a service that's done on an hourly rate, I suspect that the actual cost to complete all these is going to be somewhat more. So I wouldn't be surprised if we got into the $4,000 to $5,000 range.
Yeah. You're going to say something?
Yeah, so adding tables to the agendas, minutes, YouTube links on the archives page is relatively simple. I don't think we need to automatically push that to the calendar plugin. That would require custom coding. Wouldn't recommend doing that. I'm also happy to come in for an hour and knock out a few of these. The relatively simple ones. If they're changing a plugin or doing any custom coding to make it different, this is where dig into a scope of work on this. Doesn't $1,500 to knock out all of these seems reasonable. Be happy to come in and we can probably knock out a few of them in an hour or two.
Yeah,
so staff as well.
So basically you're saying the archive changes don't do that. So
the archive changes do, but don't push them.
But don't do it automated.
Basically, it's adding a table of links, and that's out of the box functionality.
Yeah, I'm surely not a web designer person, and I may not be able to speak completely to this, but my understanding is that there's a lot that has been archived, and so some of this effort is just the amount of it that if you want to go back with everything that's in there right now, it's going to be a lot. On the other hand, if you only want to go back a couple of years, it's going to be less.
I'm sure.
It's more getting it established, and then if staff has time to move forward, someone's going through and just updating, attach this link to this PDF.
Yeah.
So if we make a recommendation with a number not to exceed during the calendar year 2024.
Be open to that. Basically, so what we're saying is this was not budgeted, so rising an amount up to X for the remainder of 2024.
And referring only to the complex points of the update, correct?
They had point one was reforming the archives, so right now the archives link to the agenda PDF. We don't have a link to the minutes PDF or a specific link to the YouTube video. So someone just has to go in, type in the text, highlight it, add link, and then do that for years of meetings, or we could say, just start with this year.
Yeah.
And it'll be a lot
I'd say just
simpler.
start with this year. Yeah.
That'll be my recommendation, and then we don't need to push those to the calendar, and then items 2 through 6, they quoted as $300 to $750.
Yeah, just do it.
You're okay with
2 through 6.
2 through 6, and capping out at what, 1,500, assuming?
1,500 or 2,000. If they only get through half of them this year, great.
I'll make a motion that we engage Red X on their services on the complex request part of the list, capping out at 3,400 for 2024. And items 2 through 6, capping that out at 1,500 for the year 2024.
3,400, I'm sorry.
I'd be comfortable with $2,000 for everything.
Okay.
That's.
$2,000.
$2,000, I'm cool, $2,000.
I'll modify.
Yeah, modify $2,000, so not to exceed $2,000.
For year 2024.
Yeah. And then we can budget, if we decide we want to budget more for 2025, we'll do that in the budget process.
Okay.
Okay. Staff, do you understand the motion, or you'll be able to explain that to Tara? Will listen to the
On
recording.
the YouTube side.
Okay, hopefully.
Times as you want.
Yeah.
Number 1. And then as far as the money will go for 2 through 6.
Yeah. And as a comment, I'm happy to meet with you and Red X and walk through. I've been developing a WordPress since 2004. I built my first website in that, so I've spent.
I would be willing about to, as long as Ethan there for class number 1.
So we have a motion by Roger. Second. Okay, you can second. Okay. Any other comments? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay. Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay. We have 10A, request for zoning ordinance amendment. And I know Byler, you're here, I believe, for that one. Like we received the zoning. Talk us through it.
Sure. Last week, the petition for zoning amendment to modify the village zone, particular for the fence property at the corner of 6 and 340. So the first step in the process would be for the board to accept the petition and authorize staff to distribute it out to our planning partners for review and comment. And then a hearing will have to be scheduled, and we'll get
most likely mid-July.
probably looking at your July meeting. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Any questions? Okay.
That we accept the zoning ordinance text amendment petition for distribution and review to all the township planning partners for their review and comment.
Okay. So made by Mike, second by Ted. Any comment from the board or the public? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Great. Okay, hopefully we'll see you in mid-July.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, authorized fire police assistance to New Holland. So New Holland's requested fire companies to assist them during New Holland Fair. Hand-in-hand fire companies want and plan to provide assistance through supervisors. So we typically just have to agree to authorize this so they can be covered for what comes. So we get a motion?
I'd like to approve the request from Lawrence Spot Fire Police. hand in hand will sit them the line farmers. October 2nd through 2020.
Okay, motion made by Roger,
Second.
seconded by Mike. Any public comment? Board comments? Okay, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we have an agreement for reimbursement for costs of the U.S. Women's Open Golf Tournament, which starts this Friday.
Yes, you received this, document, late this afternoon. The exhibit that's attached to it, essentially goes through all of the, security and traffic posts that, our, police department will be, providing. And the document, as it is, indicates that USDA will reimburse us for those hours at $98.89 per hour. I did ask them to put it on USGA letterhead and all of them come to us all signed by Mr. Baggett. That didn't happen, so I suggest that that be a condition of the board's action, and if there are any other concerns or conditions that the board would have related with the policing plan for the tournament, include those as well. But you know, our department has been actively involved in the preparations, and I believe the plan is a good plan, and we'll be happy with the results.
Motion to approve the reimbursement agreement for cost contingent on the agreement being signed and on letterhead from the U.S. Women's Open USGA. Second. I guess
I can say so moved from what you said.
Say so moved. So moved. Bye.
I'm sorry.
That's right here. Good. You got a second. There you go. Cool. I mean, I can make a motion, but I can't?
You can.
I can. Yeah, okay. Well, you said so moved. You're second. Okay. Any other public comment? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Thank you. We have appointments to Emergency Services Committee, Whitmer Fire Company. Whitmer's appointed primary representative, resign, alternate representative with term ending 12/31/24 is currently Mike Kramer. Whitmer has requested Mike be appointed to fill the now vacant representative position with term ending 12/31/25. Additionally, Whitmer requests the appointment of John Kreider for the remainder of the alternate representative position term ending 12/31/24. Can I get a motion to approve this appointment to the ESC for Whitmer representatives? So moved by Ethan, yeah, and then second by. Okay, thanks. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Manager's report.
Staff prepared a proposal for initiating the comprehensive plan. Just wanted to get that in the board's hands and look for your feedback and go future meetings.
Good.
With the community survey continuation, drafted some additional questions that we think we should follow up to. Again, wanted you to have those and look for your feedback at a future meeting.
Any other comments from the board before adjournment?
Mention the mass communication tool that we now have and we can gain the move back and hopefully from the next one. We did one second. We put them down the closing for 30 or 2.2. I think that's good. There'll be a letter in July to encourage people to sign up It has already been on the website and on our Facebook page as well. So we have been getting some people signing up. Hopefully the newsletter will generate some more interest. So we look forward to using that tool in the future.
I had a question. What advantages does the app give you? If you don't have to have the app to get the alerts, correct?
You can get alerts in a variety of different ways.
Right. You can say it's going to come in under the heading of hyperreach. You don't need the app, but I had someone asked me a question, well, what's the advantage of having the app? Does that store them or is it?
You're asking technical questions.
It could be other, you can sign up for other hyper alerts. You know, like if you, let's just say there's multiple municipalities that all use hyper alert, you would all get those all in that one app. But to your
Do that by
point,
text message too.
exactly, yeah.
It doesn't give you any
It's not
additional
huge.
information.
Yeah. Some people have their notifications on for text, but don't have them on for apps. Like
Yeah, it was a
versa.
neighbor last year.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, yeah. Anything else? Okay, great. Just want to say congrats to Casey Koffel for another Olympic placement. So she'll be going to Paris. East Lampeter, great for her, great for her family. Okay, accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved by second. Roger, any public comment on the adjournment? Okay, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We're adjourned. Thank you.